All right, in one of my videos the other day, I was talking about designated breakpoints, and I didn't have a really good example to show at the time, but this is actually a perfect example, and it's something that I've dealt with before, so I thought I would share it for those who are maybe interested in engineering or mechanics or something like that. So this is the cutting knife or the mixing knife for a fancy blender that my wife and I own called a Thermomix. It's very cool. If you have a wife who likes to cook and bake, check it out. You can just Google Thermomix, and it's basically a expensive German blender that can heat, and so you can cook in it as well as prepare bread and soups and all these other kinds of things. Anyway, so my wife was grating some cheese with this, and it broke. And it broke in a location where I've had these break once before, about 4 years ago. I reached out to the company 4 years ago to complain because this blender costs like $1,100, and these knives cost like $60 to replace. They're very expensive. And I was complaining about it, and she basically said, well, you must have misused it because it broke exactly where it's supposed to break. That's a designated breakpoint. In German, it's a Sollbruchstelle, basically like a location where we want something to break. And you may be familiar with this concept. Sometimes it's called a shear pin or a shear collar or something like that. And the reason engineering companies do this, manufacturers do this, is basically they know that the customer may misuse the machine. Like with a piece of agricultural equipment, they might run over a stump and the blade is going to hit the stump or something like that. Or in this case, you might drop frozen chicken into the blender and this knife isn't strong enough to cut through it, let's say. And so the designers know that if you do that, basically all hell's going to break loose. And what they want it to do is break in a very certain way so that it's safe. They don't want this thing bending and the whole thing getting thrown off balance and it hop and skip all over your counter. They don't want this blade breaking off and flying out and hurting someone. They don't want it getting wedged between the canister and the frozen chicken. So what they do is they say, okay, we're comfortable with forces in the, X Newton. We're comfortable with torque of X Newton meters. And anything beyond that, we want to shut the machine down because there must have been some sort of an emergency. And so we're going to shut the machine down by basically breaking something. And so what they do is they take this shaft, which is, which is around 8 millimeters, and then they neck it down to almost 5. And so they basically figured out at 5 mil with this material, it's going to take X amount of force or torque to break it, and we want it to break at that. And what that does is it decouples the motor from the blades. And so that's what a designated breakpoint is. That's why they use it. That's how they use it. Now, I think this one is, I think there's a problem with their design on this, or there's a problem with the material, because this is the second blade we've snapped, and it broke doing something that my wife has done 1,000 times, and it's something that the machine is meant to do and allowed to do and prescribed to do. So we didn't misuse this, but this is now the second mixing knife that is broke. So this video isn't really to complain about Thermomix's quality, although I'm not happy about it. But it is just to show a really good example of what a designated breakpoint is. And so if you're ever working on a piece of machinery and you see a shaft that has sort of been necked down or something like that, or you see a brass pin in a location where you think, wow, that must be the weakest link, it is the weakest link. And that's the reason why. And so for mechanics or aspiring engineers or something like that, it's a kind of cool concept to think about. And if you're designing equipment of any kind, you may consider designing some sort of designated breakpoint or shear pin or shear collar or something like that into the machine. All right, well, that was it for today. If you didn't like this video, I get it. Let me know by giving me a thumbs down. And go check out a guy by the YouTube channel, This Old Tony. He's a machinist, really cool guy. I enjoy his videos, and I hope you will too. All right, take care.